Hello, and welcome to my channel, Reading Little Blue Books Out Loud. This is a little blue book. It happens to be Little Blue Book number 1263, and it is entitled The Serpent's Tooth and Other Stories. Written by Clay Fawkes. F-U-L-K-S. Fawkes. And this is part 3. We left off on beginning of chapter 5 on page 22, and here we go. Events were now moving rapidly in Stony Point. Before the Scopes trial was ended, another trial of somewhat similar nature was about to begin in this little backwoods village. The Baptist Church of Stony Point had been called in conference with Brother Cotton as moderator. Old Josh George, the patriarch of the village, pulling his long gray beard arose in his pew and said, "Brother Cotton, brethren and sistern, it has become my sad duty to call up a matter that has purty nigh broke my old heart. I refer as you all know, to the scandalous heresy of our young sister, Miss Mildred Baxter, who, it seems, has forsaken the path of righteousness and has went off after this here modern infidelity and the evolution craze. Brethren, we have got to stand like a stone wall against the flood of infidel doctrine let loose by higher institutions of higher education, or just God will haul us responsible." Loud amens were heard. "I therefore make a motion that a committee of brethren be forthwith named and appointed to call on Sister Baxter. I call her sister because she is still a member of our church, and question her concerning and touching of these matters. If I can get a second." "I second the motion," said Barney Strayhorn, "and I think the committee ought to go further and find out why she ain't been a-comin' out meeting here lately." "I second that motion too," spoke up Bud Bartlett. "I noticed the gal's been mighty proud and stiff-necked here lately." As a titter of approval started over the congregation, Sarah Baxter, dressed in her Sunday sable, arose with dignity. A hush fell upon the worshippers. She controlled her emotion with obvious difficulty. "I do not blame you all," she began, "for what you all are about to do. I have talked to her and prayed and prayed and prayed. You all don't know how sharper than a serpent's—" But she couldn't proceed no further and sat down weeping. After much discussion, all unfavorable to the erring sister, the motion was adopted, and a committee consisting of brothers Josh George, Barney Strayhorn, and Bud Bartlett was appointed to investigate and report its findings at the next regular conference. Sarah walked home from church in great distress and reported the action taken by the conference to her rebellious niece. "Now, before they come, Mildred, I want you to pray to God for light and wisdom, as you never prayed before," Sarah entreated. "Don't be stubborn and stiff-necked. Don't harden your heart. Don't resist the Spirit. Let it guide you. We all stray into the paths of sin occasionally, but when God warns us, we must heed. You have been misled. Satan is always spreading snares for our feet, but don't let him overcome you. Listen to the still small voice and to the gentle reproofs of Brother Cotton. But Mildred remained non-committal, evidently thinking instead of praying, but biting her lips at the mention of Brother Cotton and his gentle reproofs. Suddenly a commotion was heard outside. "Oh, Miss Sarah! Oh, Miss Sarah!" shrieked a woman's voice from the front porch. It was Linda, her dirty, emaciated baby astride her hip. "Oh, Miss Sarah!" She was repeating at the top of her voice. "What in the world, Linda?" exclaimed Sarah as she hastened to the door, thoroughly alarmed. "Can't you hear 'em?" panted Linda. "The fight! Hercules and Brother Cotton!" Sarah waited to listen no further, but fearing for the safety of her pastor, started at once for the scene of the fight. Mildred remained in the kitchen, making the final preparations for the noonday meal. She declined to become interested in Brother Cotton. Meanwhile, Linda took up an advantageous position in the kitchen, attracted by the aroma of spices. "Give me a piece of that pie, Millie," she requested. "Take this chair, Miss Sullivan, and eat all the pie you want," said Millie. "Here, give this to the baby," handing Linda a glass of milk. "This here pie sure is good, Millie," said Linda, her mouth so full she could only mumble the words then. "I sure am sorry for you, Millie. The way these folks is doing you is just terrible. I guess you and Hercules is going to—" But Linda broke off suddenly, grabbed another piece of pie, threw the baby astride her hip, and hurried back to the scene that was wrecking and rocking Stony Point to its foundations. She could hear loud voices, commingled shouts of distress and laughter. She trotted on, straining her ears and shifting the baby from one hip to the other. Reaching the edge of the crowd, she stopped and began firing questions to anyone whose attention she could act. The whole village, it appeared, was gathered around a culvert. The tile, large enough to admit a man lying down, was heavily guarded at each end by boulders, which Hercules had rolled into place, and the belligerent young giant calmly sat on one of them, defying the crowd to interfere. Brother Cotton was safe in the tile. Sarah Baxter and others were pleading for his release, but Hercules was obdurate. "You know, you can't keep him here, Hercules argued Sarah. "I am a-keeping him here," replied Hercules iconically. The committee appointed to confer with Mildred now sought to confer with Hercules. "Not on your whiskers, Dad George," declared Hercules, shaking his tousled mane emphatically. Barney Strayhorn was the first to think of employing diplomacy. "What will you take to let him out, Hercules?" he inquired. "That you all won't turn her out," answered Hercules significantly. The committee drew aside for private conference. After prolonged, animated discussion, Hercules' terms were agreed to. One of the boulders was rolled away by the brethren, and the pastor, muddy and quaking with fear, crawled out of his prison, unhurt but panic-stricken. He made a beeline for home, his ears flooded by torrents of derisive shouts from the boys of the town. The crowd resolved itself into separate knots to talk the matter over. The good housewives of Stony Point remained oblivious to their steaming kitchens and half-prepared dinners until the acrid odor of burning bacon finally restored their presence of mind and sent them scurrying in every direction. Chapter 6. "I don't see, Mildred," said Sarah, that evening as they sat in the darkness of the front porch, "how we are to live down this thing." She wanted to say this disgrace, but refrained. "Well, Mamma," said Mildred considerately, "I am very sorry you are badly hurt, but for myself, I do not worry one moment." And that is the worst part of it all, said Sarah. I suppose, then, you think I should regard my part in this village farce as the personal disgrace to be expiated by penitence and prayers, said Mildred sarcastically. Yes, I think you should acknowledge your sins and pray God and the church to forgive you, Sarah said. It happens, however, that I cannot make any such acknowledgment or pray any such prayers, said Mildred. I am afraid I must persist in my evil ways. I must be unfit to live in this town. Or am I a misfit? At any rate, I shall look elsewhere for salvation. In the morning I packed my trunk for the city. Sarah was startled. And leave me so soon to my loneliness? After all I have done for you? In spite of all I am still willing to do for you? You are going to leave me and go to the wicked city? Mildred, you don't know what you are doing. She tried to go on, but a lump arising in her throat choked her. She tried but failed to keep back the bitter tears. Mildred was moved to pity. She laid an arm around her aunt's shaking shoulders and tried to soothe her. I love you, Mamma. You know I do. I am not leaving you forever. I am not forsaking you. I love you still, just as I always have. But don't you know there is nothing here in Stony Point for me to do? Don't you know I can't afford to sit around here doing nothing? This is not a sudden impulse, Mamma. I have been thinking of it for weeks. You must know there are no worthwhile opportunities here for me. Then you think there is nothing here to do that is important enough to... Sarah hesitated, fumbling for words to convey her meaning. Oh, there is much to be done here, I suppose, Mildred conceded. Much more than I can ever do. But I am so restless here. I am becoming irritable, so irritable that I fear I should give you more pain than pleasure. But I will come back to see you, often. There now, don't cry. Please don't. Sarah said no more. Her first moment of poignant grief subsiding, she arose and went into the house. The clock struck 11, marking preparations for retiring. She had apparently regained her wonted composure, but through long hours that night she lay in the darkness of her bedroom, struggling with a vague terror that was haunting her soul. To the city. The awful, wicked city. Oh, my God. And Sarah, sobbing in overwhelming desolation of spirit, how sharper than a serpent's tooth it is to have a thankless child. And that is the end of the Serpent's Tooth. And I think we'll stop there.